And this is real. Ben Carson owns a painting of himself posing with Jesus. Can we see the painting? This is it. Can we see that again? I'm not sure if that's Ben Carson and Jesus or Billy Ocean and a long-haired Nicolas Cage. I don't know. Like, suddenly, life has new meaning to me. There's beauty up above. This ain't ever take no sun. Wake up suddenly.
Well, Jimmy jokes here, but that was a real painting in Ben Carson's house. Yes, he on the first name basis with the Jesus. Okay, now that is just added to a long list of not even stuff he can deny or contort. I mean, that's in the house. But what about the list of admissions? He's like trying to stab another kid when he was young, try to hit mom with a hammer, and did or didn't get accepted to West Point, depending on who you ask. Obviously, we've got a lot of storylines, but Fox Business Network, who is the broadcaster of this evening's debate in Milwaukee, says it isn't going to be focusing on any of that stuff. Instead, it wants to keep it to the issues, especially the economy, business, and money. That would be different, certainly, from the prior three debates, which were more like food fights, sometimes entertaining. Now, another change. Only 8 people are going to be standing on the main stage instead of 10. That means Chris Christie and Mike Huckabee. They're going to be at the little kids' table, and that debate starts at 7 p.m. But Trump, Carson, they head into tonight's debate as the frontrunners, but much of the focus will also be on one Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio. So the question is, will Jeb slam his former protege like he did last time? And we're hearing accounts has already been spending a lot of time and effort in terms of the prep on that narrative, but also risk getting smacked down like he did last time after went after him? Or will Jeb focus, like the rest supposedly, on policy, which is supposed to be his strength? Giancarlo, we've heard all of the rumors. We've also seen some of the ads that are even coming out. You've got Rubio running an ad right now, just using all the praise that Jeb gave him when they were both two politicos in Florida. We're also hearing that Jeb Bush is doing not just tons of Oppo research on Rubio, but they're already crafting lines where he can go after Rubio. If you were counseling Jeb Bush, is it in his best interest to go after Rubio tonight or to steer clear of him?
I would not advise Governor Bush to go after Marco Rubio. You didn't have to be a political expert. Frankly, you didn't have to know anything about politics to see how uncomfortable and awkward the exchange was that you referred to in the first debate. I personally think Jeb Bush would be much better served focusing his ire, training his attention on 2 candidates that he truly doesn't believe should be on that stage, and that's Ben Carson and Donald Trump. Jeb Bush likes Marco Rubio. As you mentioned, Jeb Bush was Marco Rubio's mentor. He didn't have a beef with Marco Rubio. He's got a beef with 2 people who are fundamentally unserious candidates. Jeb Bush is a serious candidate. We've learned that throughout the course of this race. He's not a go along to get along kind of guy. Maybe he's not even the guy you want to have a beer with, but he's a serious guy that got real results in Florida. He wants to have a real and a serious debate. Hopefully he'll have that tonight. But I think Jeb should train his fire on 2 candidates that are frankly beneath him when it comes to a grasp of public policy and leadership.
You said Jeb should focus his ire. Does he have ire?
Sure,
because
he does.
A lot of people are thinking that either he's underperforming or he just doesn't have that sort of go-get-him mentality.
I will say this. I think one area where the campaign has not served Jeb well is reminding voters in America that Jeb was highly successful and very popular in Florida. This is the same guy. He has been true to himself during this presidential campaign. He's not someone to jump up and down and breathe fire. That's just not who he is. It's not who he ever was. And you can argue that that's not working in this campaign. That's not the discussion. The discussion is he's remaining true to himself and true to what he is. And I think the country, or at least the Republican electorate, is deciding, is that who we want? And it may not be.
Well, let's talk about the format this conversation or strategy will come in. Fox Business News says, hey, we're going to follow timelines. Everybody, in effect, is going to get equal time tonight that's on the stage. They cut it from 10 to 8, as we said, opening statements, closing statements, and the rest. How long do you think this goes before it goes off the rails and turns into Trump talking about hammers or whatever else, like he's done in every morning appearance today? Or do you think that it's in the best interest for the top 2 guys, who are the 2 most unstable guys, I would say, to keep it on the issue since they're up by 10, 15 points depending on the poll.
Well, I think one thing we know is that both Trump and Carson don't want to talk specifically about the issues. But I do think Trump's going to have trouble going after Carson. You notice, and you're absolutely right, he goes after Carson when Carson isn't there. When Carson's present, Trump has been very deferential and quite frankly supportive. And I think that's because Carson has a way of not responding to Trump that makes his type of attack almost useless. And so I think Trump would be ill-advised to go after Carson, just like I think, and I totally agree with you, that Jeb Bush should not go after Marco Rubio. I think Jeb Bush should go after nobody. I am so sick of Jeb Bush talking about Jeb Bush and other people. I think he should take quite frankly, a lesson from Chris Christie and focus on the American people and what he wants to do for them. That's Jeb Bush's strength. He's got ideas. He's got policies. I think to go after other people is a big mistake for Jeb Bush. I think he should focus on what he plans to do and not
John
talk about
Carlo,
his
to
campaign.
that point, to Jeannie's point, what I've been surprised most of all about this campaign, I thought it set up perfectly for Jeb because you had the clown car out of the gate here and the rest, and you figured when it comes time to being serious, you've got Jeb. But he has had trouble communicating in a even remotely articulate way why he's the best guy and what exactly his policies are, even on immigration and everything else. He seemed to take umbrage with Trump with the wall right away and what he would say with the anchor babies and everything. And then the next day or two, he kind of tacked back a little bit when he saw some of the reaction and how that was playing. I've been waiting for him to be the adult in the room, and he just hasn't distinguished himself. And I think that's part of the reason Rubio has emerged, at least if you believe the polls, filling in that gap.
I think that much of the Republican electorate is still responding emotionally in this campaign. Emotionally, they like what Donald Trump has to say. Emotionally, they can connect on some wavelength with a Ben Carson. And Jeb doesn't have that connection yet. Frankly, because that's not his strength. His strength, to Jeannie's point, is
to quote Gogi, though, is it getting late early?
Yeah, no, and there is no question that both Jeb and his campaign have, I would argue, almost everyone, the conventional wisdom has misread this election. You know, I happen to believe that Jeb always knew that he would battle an anti-establishment faction during this primary. But everyone assumed that that anti-establishment faction would come in the form of the right wing of the party, and instead it's come in the form of the broken wing of the Republican Party, which is to say the disaffected and those who are just mad.
Well,
and they're reacting emotionally, and that's not Jeb's strength.
You know him better than the rest of us do. You also know him better than, frankly, the American public that's only really seen him through the prism of these debates. What's the most frustrating thing about how this campaign has gone off so far? Because now it's not just what the pundits say. You're starting to see real donors in Florida and even around here that are starting to either withhold money or maybe give money to Rubio or whatever else. What has he not conveyed that you're like, this isn't the guy that I've known for so long?
I think, and I'm not sure, Jeannie, if we agree or disagree on this point, and you said he shouldn't take on anyone. I think, to answer your question, that it's not, he has not allowed his natural strengths to come through. And his natural strengths, his ability to look at the camera, to talk to the American people and say, look, I'm a serious guy, but guess what? These are serious times. That's the reason you're so angry in the first place. I've got real solutions. I implemented them in Florida to great result. Why are you wasting your time listening to these two clowns when you should be listening to people like me and others on the stage who offer serious ideas also?
I agree with you. My only concern is Kasich tried that in the last debate. And I thought his point was well said, and it had very little resonance on the right. And so that made me wonder if you just do what Carson does with Trump, just ignore the attacks, and they seem to go away, and focus, as you said, on the things that you could do for the American people. And I have to say, I think Chris Christie, thank God Dominic's not here, but I think Chris Christie has done a really good job of looking in the camera at every debate and saying, this is about you and not about me. I mean, Jeb
but yet he finds himself at the Little Kids table tonight. And what is the one thing that resonated that he said? It was an off-the-cuff remark talking about compassion to those that either have addictions or whatever else, which all of a sudden surprised people and showed maybe this isn't just the bully yelling at people on the boardwalk, you know? Now, it's not working for him, but...
Well, I think Chris Christie has been consistently underrated in terms of his performance, and he demonstrated with that clip, talking about his friend who died of addiction, why we fell in love with him in the first place. So,
And we're going to see how these things
And
play
he's
out.
performed well at every debate so far.
Well,
But
we'll
you're
see.
right.
I mean,
he's
it's
the
underrated.
weakest competition
I know.
tonight.
Yeah. Well, they're going to say that he's going to be at the little kids' table, and maybe he
Yeah.
can have the Fiorina bump if he does or distinguish himself well. We'll see, and we'll know later on tonight. Okay, coming up next. Controversy in the Bush family. Tell-all biography about George Herbert Walker Bush, where he really pulled no punches about his son and his son's administration. John Carl is going to tell us about the man, obviously Bush 41, that he worked for, and why now, and also why he feels so strongly, apparently, about this. Stay with us.